Well, this is our 12th session. Is that the right word? We have went from creation all the way to tonight. We're going to cross the Jordan River and take Canaan land. We're going to kill Achan. Yes. And worship at Mount Ebal and Gerizim, and we'll be done. I turned it on. Yeah. All right. Let me look at the map here. So at this juncture, this is the Dead Sea, and this is the area known as Shittim. This is in the country of Jordan. Here's the Jordan River. And just across the Jordan River from Shittim is Jericho. Now, this is modern-day Jericho. Ancient Jericho was to the northwest of the city that is today, up in this area. So from the Dead Sea up to Shittim is about 7 miles or so. And it's about a 7-mile or 5-mile journey from Shittim to the Jordan River. And it's about a 6-mile journey from the Jordan River to ancient Jericho. So that's where we're at today. We're going to cross the Jordan, and we'll talk more about that later. But we are camped out here in Shittim, and we're getting ready. Tonight we're going to cross the Jordan River. Now, I will say, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but the spot where they crossed the Jordan River, they commemorated that with 12 stones. And that same area is where Jesus was baptized, and that is where Elijah was taken up in a chariot of fire. And that is also the area where Elisha took over Elijah's reign after he was taken to heaven. And that all happened in this area where the Jordan River was crossed by the Canaanites, or the Israelites, sorry, not the Canaanites. So that gives you some physical picture of where we're talking about this area. Now, again, this is a modern map. This is Google Earth, so this is stuff, today, and this is a popular tourist site where people go because a lot of biblical history happened in this region, okay? Yeah, so understand that the Dead Sea is roughly 2,000 feet below sea level. So all of this land here is low. Now, yeah, you see, if you understand relief maps, you can see how the elevation begins to change. But this here would basically be water from the Jericho River, the Jordan River, for the farms and fields that are in these areas. But this is mostly a desert area, except for the Jordan River. And there are some tributaries that come from Jordan into the Jordan River, but there's really not many tributaries at all that flow from Israel into the Jordan. So.
You may not know it, I don't know it, ain't a big deal. The Dead Sea, what is like the dimensions of it? Do you have any idea? If you don't have any idea.
Well, I can measure it real quick. Well, I got to go to the map. Hang on. Nope. No, it goes right here.
I was just wondering.
Well, we went to New Hebron. Hang on, I got to fly to Israel. It's easier to measure stuff on Google Maps than it is Google Earth. So the Dead Sea is roughly 30 miles long. And it's roughly 10 miles wide, roughly. So, and I can just leave it leave it on Google Maps there. So again, understand that Shittim here is in Jordan, modern-day Jordan. Obviously, this is still modern-day Israel. All right. So, that being said. So, last month we had Moses. He died, and Joshua has taken over. So, Joshua is now the leader of the Hebrews. And I'm going to read several verses tonight, so that's why our handout isn't very long, because I got several verses I want to read. So this is the first month of Joshua's leadership. In Joshua chapter 1, beginning in verse 1, now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying, Moses my servant is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all this people, into the land which I do give to them, even to the children of Israel, every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that I have given you, as I said unto Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon, even unto the great river, the river of Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and unto the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your coast. There shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. Be strong and of a good courage, for unto this people shalt thou divide for an inheritance the land which I swear unto their fathers to give them. Only be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayest observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded thee. Turn not from the right hand nor to the left, that thou mayest prosper whithersoever thou goest. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that this therein is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Have I not commanded thee? Be strong and of a good courage. We've read that 3 times in these 9 verses. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest. So understand, some 39 years ago, they were on the precipice of going into Canaan land at Kadesh Barnea in the southern portion of Israel. And because of their lack of faith, God banished them to the wilderness. We're all familiar with that story. Perhaps that's the most famous story in Scripture is this wandering in the wilderness. So they've been doing this for 30-some-odd years, 39 years, until all of the adults, 20 years old and older, have died off. Every one of them that was 20 years old and older at Kadesh Barnea are now dead, except for Joshua and Caleb, which they were rewarded for their faith. So, at this point, when the Hebrews crossed the Red Sea, when they first left Egypt, the oldest of them that was in that group that is now going to be able to cross the Jordan River is now 59 years old, roughly. Do we understand? Because all the people 20 years old and older died off. And so if you were 19 at Kadesh Barnea, then you lived to see crossing the Red Sea, and now you're going to live to see crossing the Jordan because you were under 20 at Kadesh Barnea. Everybody understands that there. But understand that the vast majority of this group of people never even crossed the Red Sea. This is all a new generation that's getting ready to cross the Jordan River. Now understand, and we're going to read through this, but understand at this time the Jordan River is a much larger river than it is shown on this picture today, because today's agriculture takes a lot of the water off the Jordan River for crops and irrigation and whatnot. So when it gets to the Dead Sea, the Jordan River is not very large at all. But in Moses' time and in Joshua's time, it was a large river, especially at the time they're going to cross, because Scripture tells us that it was overflowing its banks because of the rainy season. All right? So, Joshua sins. So God reaffirms His commitment to Joshua and to the Hebrews. Here, what we read here in Joshua chapter 1, verses 1 through 9. Joshua sends spies into the city of Jericho who were hidden for safety by Rahab. Now, that's all spelled out in Joshua chapter 2. I'm not going to read that. But Joshua sends 2 spies into Jericho to just kind of get a feel for the land, similar to what Moses did with the 12 spies that he sent into Canaan at Kadesh Barnea some 40 years prior. And then Rahab hides them for safety. We perhaps know the story of how the men of Jericho came to find the spies, and Rahab faithfully hid them, and they were saved. Joshua commands the people at this point to take provision and prepare to cross the Jordan River to go to Jericho. So Joshua's mustering up his troops. We're getting ready to go. Let's prepare. And so we'll see that in Joshua chapter 1, verses 10 and 11. Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, Pass through the host and command the people, saying, Prepare you victuals, for within 3 days ye shall pass over this Jordan to go in to possess the land which the Lord your God giveth you to possess it. Get ready. Now again, keep in mind, 40 years prior was the same story with Moses and the people then. Get ready, we're going to go. Oh, we can't go. And the lack of faith in those people kept them from going, except for Joshua and Caleb here. But so Joshua is now mustering the people, some perhaps 3 million, 2 million people that he's sending his men through to tell them to get ready, we're going to go. Keep in mind too that this is right before the Passover. Now I'm jumping ahead here a little bit, but once they cross the Jordan, they're going to circumcise the men, and they're going to celebrate the Passover. More on that when we go through this a little further. All right. So Joshua's got the people mustered. He says there in 3 days we're going to pass over. That's in verse 11 of chapter 1. They leave Shittim the next morning and travel to the Jordan River. So they pack up where they were camping. Again, it's not very far, but it is far enough that they leave where they're at and they go to the edge of the Jordan River. And again, this is some 5 miles, so they don't travel far, but they are getting ready to cross. And so Joshua moves them the next day, and they camp on the east side of the Jordan River. Stand by just a moment. I got to go back to... Okay. All right. Now, so all of Israel is now... Well, that's not in focus, is it? Must be the connection. Anyway, so keep in mind that right now, all of Israel is camped right here along the Jordan River. Yeah, it's not going to... What we got going on here?
How many million did we have to camp there?
There. I'm going to say 3 million, but I just a random guess. Now, Jericho is some 1,000, or is about sea level. But it's about 2,000 feet below sea level here. So the people of Jericho have a good line of sight, and they see these millions of people camped out on the east side of the Jordan River. These folks are fully aware of what these people have been through. And you can read about that in Joshua chapter 2. These people understand that these people are God's people. And they also understand that God's people are coming to their city because they're the first city when they cross. All right, now again, I'm not going to read Joshua chapter 2, but that's spelled out in Joshua chapter 2. And they can look from their city and see it's a clear line of sight from Jericho to the Jordan River. And I'm going to tell you, it's hard to hide 2 million people. All right? I'm setting all this up so that we understand how it looks. All right? They leave Shittim and they go to the Jordan River. Joshua chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. Let's read that. Joshua chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. And Joshua rose early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim, and they came to the Jordan. He and all the children of Israel lodged there before they passed over. And it came to pass after 3 days that the officers went through the host, and they commanded the people, saying, When ye see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then ye shall remove from your place, and go after it. I'm going to verse 5. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits. So that's about half a mile. Come not near unto it, that ye may know the way by which ye must go, for ye have not passed this way heretofore. And Joshua said unto the people, Sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. So Joshua tells them, when you see the Levites picking up and carrying the Ark of the Covenant, leave a half-mile space behind them, and they are going to carry the Ark of the Covenant into the water. When they get into the waters will separate. And then you are to know that that's where you're going to cross. Moving on here. On the 10th day of the first month, which is April, Joshua led the people through the Jordan River into the promised land of Canaan. Normally in this month, the Jordan River would overflow its banks. Let's look at chapter 3, verse 6 through 8. And Joshua said unto the priests, saying, Take up the Ark of the Covenant and pass over before the people. And they took up the Ark of the Covenant and went before the people. And the Lord said to Joshua, This day will I begin to magnify thee in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. And thou shalt command the priests that bear the Ark of the Covenant, saying, When ye are come to the brink of the water of Jordan, ye shall stand still in Jordan. How far am I going there? Let's go down to verse 13.
And it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests that bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth shall rest in the waters of Jordan, that the waters of Jordan shall be cut off from the waters that come down from above, and they shall stand upon a heap. And it came to pass, when the people removed from their tents to pass over Jordan, and the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people, and as they that bear the ark were come unto Jordan, and the feet of the priests that bear the ark were dipped into the brim of the water, for Jordan overflows all of his banks at this time of the harvest, that the waters which came down from above stood and rose up upon a heap very far from the city Adam, that is Zaratan, and those that came down toward the sea of the plain, even the salt sea, failed and were cut off, and the people passed over right against Jericho. Now, when they crossed the Red Sea, nobody got wet. But when they crossed the Jordan, the feet of the priests got in the water, and that's when the waters parted. Now, I don't know that there's any biblical significance to that, but it is interesting to me that when they got to the Red Sea, God parted the waters and everybody was dry, but when the priests come to the Jordan River, it doesn't back up until the priests put their feet in the water. Again, I don't know if there's any significance to that, but it is interesting to point out. So, this never did clear up, did it? I believe, now I forgive me because I didn't look this up until, and I didn't even think about it till just now, but I believe that the city of Adam was some 20 miles north of where they crossed. So the waters that were coming down, because the river comes from the north down to the Dead Sea, the waters backed up from where they crossed some 20 miles. Now, the Scripture does not tell us that the waters began to flow into the valley. It said that it backed up. Now, take that for what it's worth. Perhaps it did fill the valley here, but something kept all this water from flowing to the Dead Sea. Obviously, that was the hand of God. But all the water from the cross went to the Dead Sea, and this all dried up. So eventually, you had probably a 10-mile area that was dried up, and that's where they crossed. Now again, just something to think about, how that it backed up. But I think I read somewhere where the city of Adam, they're not really for sure where it's at, but they believe that it was some 20 miles north. But again, you can argue to somebody else about that. All right, so they're in the promised land. All they had to do was have faith and cross. The same thing that they had to do if they would have had 40 years ago, right? By having faith and crossing, they wouldn't even have to cross the Jordan River. It was all right there. And again, as I pointed out a couple months ago when we were at Kadesh Barnea, I mean, it was just right there. They didn't have to cross anything. But they didn't want to go because of their lack of faith. But we see here the faith in the priests to put their feet in the water, and then obviously the faith of the people to cross over because the river had dried up. As a memorial, Joshua commands an altar of stones be built in the midst of the river and an altar on the western bank of the river. So let's go to Joshua chapter 4, verse 1. And it came to pass, when all the people were clean passed over Jordan, that the Lord spake unto Joshua, saying, Take ye 12 men out of the people, out of every tribe a man, and command ye them, saying, Take you hence out of the midst of Jordan, out of the place where the priest's feet stood firm, 12 stones, and ye shall carry them over with you, and leave them in a lodging place, where ye shall lodge this night. So one man of each of the 12 tribes is going to take a stone out of the river, and they're going to build an altar on the western side of the Jordan River. Verse 4, and Joshua called the 12, and Joshua called the 12 men whom he had prepared out of the children of Israel, out of every tribe a man. And Joshua said to them, Pass over before the ark of the Lord your God in the midst of the Jordan, and take ye up every man of you a stone upon his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, that this may be a sign among you, that when your children ask their fathers in time to come, What mean ye by these stones? Then ye shall answer them, that the waters of Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord when it passed over Jordan. The waters of Jordan were cut off, and these stones shall be for a memorial unto the children of Israel forever. And the children of Israel did as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones out of the midst of the Jordan, as the Lord spake unto Joshua, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, and carried them over with them unto the place where they lodged, and laid them down there. And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests which bear the ark of the covenant stood, and they are there unto this day. For the priests which bear the ark stood in the midst of Jordan until everything was finished, that the Lord commanded Joshua to speak unto the people according to all that Moses commanded Joshua, and the people hastened and passed over. So they built two memorials. They built one on the western side where they were going to camp at Gilgal, and they placed one in the middle of the river as a commemoration for where the priests stood. All right? Comments or questions before we move forward? All right. So, the day after they crossed the Jordan River, they camped at Gilgal, which is just a few miles to the east of Jericho. Keep in mind that people of Jericho can see all these people just a few miles outside of town. And they are fully aware of what God did for them when they crossed the Red Sea some 40 years ago. And they saw what happened just yesterday when they crossed the Jordan River, every one of them, when the river backed up. They saw it. They could not help but see because it's right there in the middle of it. I mean, just a few miles away, and they're so much higher in elevation that you can't not see. I want everybody to understand that wasn't a surprise attack on Jericho. The people of Jericho knew they were coming. So after they crossed the Jordan River, while camped at Gilgal, Joshua renews the practice of circumcision, which had been neglected over 40 years of wandering. So God had made the covenant with Abraham about circumcising the males, and that was practiced all the way up until they were in Goshen in Egypt. But then during this wandering, they stopped circumcising the males. So Joshua reaffirms the covenant that God made with Abraham. And so now this first day after crossing the Jordan River, all the males are now circumcised. So they camp at Gilgal and stayed there until the men recovered. Now, I don't know how long that would be. What was that all about? Yeah, for a few days. Also, the kings of the people on the western side of the Jordan River were intimidated by the knowledge of the Hebrews entering the land. So not only do the people of Jericho know who these people are, but the word has spread throughout all the kings of the territory in Canaan. All right? They're all intimidated by it. Also, during this camp at Gilgal, the Hebrews celebrated the Passover, and the day following, God ceased in supplying them manna. Understand, for almost every day they were in the wilderness, God fed them manna. From about after the first week, perhaps, after leaving Egypt, until this point, they'd had manna every day of their life. They had quail for a while, but God gave them quail until they got sick of it. And so now they're in their land. They haven't conquered anything, but they are now in their land that God has promised them. Now, we could be technical and say God had actually promised them land on the west or the eastern side of the Jordan, but we're not going to split hairs here. And so now that they're in their land, God does not supply them with manna. They're going to have to begin eating of their land and their livestock. Okay. Let's look at Joshua chapter 5, verse 1. I don't know that we need to read all that. I kind of covered all that, so I won't read that. That's just talking about the circumcision of the people and also that the manna ceased. So we're not going to read all those verses. Let's go to chapter 5, verse 13, though. In Joshua chapter 5, verse 13, we read about this captain of the Lord's host. Let's read that. Joshua chapter 5, verse 13. And it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, Art thou for us, or for our adversaries? And he said, Nay, but as captain of the host of the Lord, I am now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth, and did worship, and said unto him, What saith my Lord unto his servant? And the captain of the Lord's host said unto Joshua, Loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place whereon thou standest is holy. And Joshua did so. This is a pre-incarnate Jesus Christ coming and reaffirming to Joshua all the promises that God had made him, that God was going to be with him and God was going to be leading them in the conquest of their land, Canaan. But this here would be a pre-incarnate or a pre-birth appearance of Jesus Christ himself. And there are some, I'm not sure how many times in the Old Testament we do read about Jesus Christ himself coming and showing himself to people, obviously before his birth in Bethlehem. All right. Now, it's time to begin the conquest. Now, keep in mind, I don't think I'm going to get clear. I don't know what's... It's getting a little better, but let me go to the... I went back to New Hebrew. Hang on. All right. I'm going to put this for reference. There is the northwest corner of the Dead Sea. All right. The Jordan River would be right over here somewhere. All right. So again, it's about how many miles did I say? I got it wrote down on this paper, but I don't have it in front of me. It's about 7 miles from the Jordan River to ancient Jericho. All right. So perhaps it's only 3 or 4 miles because they're camped out in this valley down here, just to the west of the Jordan River. So they've got about, let's just say, a 3-mile journey to go to get to Jericho. The first conquest of this is the city of Jericho. Let's read Joshua chapter 6. I debated on whether to read all of this, but to pick and choose, it wasn't. I just thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead and read it. I read fast enough, so we'll just read it all. Joshua chapter 6. Now, again, as I said earlier, the people of Jericho know these people and what they're capable of because of their God. And again, that's spelled out in Joshua chapter 2. We didn't read that, but you can read it later. But notice it, Joshua chapter 6, verse 1. Now Jericho was straitly shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out and none came in. Jericho was surrounded by a wall where 6 chariots could race around the top of the wall. That's how big the walls were around this city, Jericho. It was closed in. There was nobody coming in. There was nobody going out because of the threat that is 3 miles away. And the Lord said to Joshua, See, I have given into thine hand Jericho, and the king thereof, and the mighty men of valor. And ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go around about the city once. Thus shalt thou do 6 days. And 7 priests shall bear the ark. And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns. And the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow with the trumpets. God's given them how they are going to conquer Jericho. And it came to pass that when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when ye hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people shall ascend up every man straight before him. And Joshua the son of Nun called the priests, said to them, Take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of the ram's horns before the ark of the Lord. And he said to the people, Pass on and compass the city, and let him that is armed pass on before the ark of the Lord. And it came to pass, when Joshua had spoken unto the people, that the 7 priests, bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns, passed on before the Lord, and blew the trumpets, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord followed them. And the armed men went before the priests that blew the trumpets, and the rearward came after the ark, the priests going on and blowing with the trumpets. And Joshua had commanded the people, saying, Ye shall not shout nor make any noise with your voice, neither shall any word proceed out of your mouth, until the day I bid you shout, then shall ye shout. So we got men with trumpets, we got the priests with the Levites with the ark, and then we got people with trumpets behind them, and then the people following. Now can you imagine the people of Jericho? They're just walking around the city. Really not quite what they expected. Verse 11. So the ark of the Lord compassed the city, going about once, and they came into the camp and lodged in the camp. So they make one circle every day for 6 days, and they go back to the camp. That's all they do. And they don't say a word this whole time. Now, I, quite frankly, would not be successful in this group of people because I would have to eventually say something. but I'm sorry. Just so that would take an amazing work of God for this vast group of people to walk around this city and not say anything. Just saying. But they did it. Yeah. So they circle around, they go back to camp. The next day they circle around, they go back to camp 6 times. Verse 12, and Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord, and 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord went on continually and blew with the trumpets, and the armed men went before them. But the rearward came after the ark of the Lord, the priests going on and blowing with the trumpets. And the second day they compassed the city once and returned to the camp, and so they did 6 days. This is quite the spectacle for the people of Jericho, I can imagine, because this is not anything all what they expected. They expected to be attacked. Remember, they were all shut in. How many days are they going to do this? Well, here's the 6th day. There's a crazy bunch of people down there. But here comes the 7th day, verse 15. And it came to pass on the 7th day that they arose early, the dawning of the day, and compassed the city after the same manner 7 times. Only on that day they compassed the city 7 times. So they went around once, they went around twice, 7 times. Now I really wish now that I'm standing here, I wish I'd have maybe gotten some kind of measurement on how large of a city Jericho was. Okay, but understand, I mean, to walk around this city once was probably quite the task. But now they're going to do it 7 times. So we have to understand that the Lord was in this to give them the strength and the endurance to do this. All right? Now understand too, I don't believe that this was all of Israel. This was the men of war. So don't picture 2 million people circling. Did I say circling? Is that a word? Circling?
The circumference of ancient Jericho's walls was roughly 3/8 of a mile.
Okay.
So 7 times roughly 21/8 would be just over 2.5 miles.
So to go 7 times would be 2.5 miles. But understand again, this is the men of war. So probably, I'll just say perhaps 600,000, maybe 1 million. I don't know how many. I mean, we don't know. But this was the men of war that were doing this, and the Levites, all right? Verse 16, and it came to pass at the 7th time that when the priests blew with the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, shout, for the Lord hath given you the city. And the city shall be accursed, even it and all that are therein, to the Lord. Only Rahab the harlot shall live, she and all that are in her house, because she hid the messengers that we sent. So at the 7th time, they're going to all shout, and the walls are going to come down, and God gives them the city. And ye in any wise keep yourselves from the accursed thing, lest ye make yourselves accursed when ye take of the accursed thing, and make the camp of Israel to curse and trouble it. But all the silver and the gold and the vessels of brass and iron are consecrated to the Lord. They shall come into the treasury of the Lord. So the people shouted when the priests blew the trumpets, and it came to pass when the people heard the sound of the trumpets, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat. Not in a big heap, not in a big pile. The wall fell down flat. They didn't have to scale some big walls of rubble. Scripture tells me that it fell flat. Amazing. If this wall falls in, one way or the other, of course, I guess it could be flat in some way because of the way it's built. But when you have a stone wall that falls, not all the stones are just going to be all laid out. It's going to be in a pile. Anyway, I digress with the 2 before construction of our church. It probably would fall flat, you understand. Anyway. So the priest, verse 20, so the priest shouted, when the priest blew so the people shouted when the priest blew the trumpets, and it came to pass when the people heard the sound of the trumpets, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city. And they utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man and woman, young and old, ox and sheep and ass, with the edge of the sword. This began to be a bloody fight. God didn't kill all the people of Jericho just because the walls fell in. All the people of Jericho died because the armies of Israel came and slaughtered them. All right? And they utterly destroyed all that was in the city. Verse 22. But Joshua said unto the 2 men that had spied out the country, go into the harlot's house and bring out thence the woman and all that she hath, as ye swear unto her. So the two men that Joshua had originally sent into Jericho, he sent them to go to Rahab's house and go grab her and her family, because they made a promise that she would live. More on her in just a moment. Verse 23, and the young men that were spies went in and brought out Rahab and her father and her mother and her brother and all that she had, and they brought her out all her kindred and left them without the camp of Israel. And they burnt the city with fire, all that was therein, only the silver and the gold and the vessels of brass and of iron, and they put in the treasury the house of the Lord. And Joshua saved Rahab the harlot alive, and her father's household, and all that she had, and she dwelleth in Israel even unto this day, because she hid the messengers which Joshua sent out to spy Jericho. And Joshua adjured them at that time, saying, Cursed be the man before the Lord that rises up and builds this city Jericho. He shall lay the foundation therein of his firstborn, and in his youngest son shall he set up the gates of it. So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was noised throughout all the country. So somebody does go and rebuild Jericho, but they don't build it on the spot where ancient Jericho was. But there is a city today called Jericho, and it was there in Jesus' time, because Jesus visited Jericho in Jesus' time. All right? Now, Rahab was saved. She was a Gentile woman. She was a harlot, a prostitute. The men and people of Jericho knew her. But she exhibited great faith in the Lord. And again, you can read about her in Joshua chapter 2. And because she exhibited great faith in saving the spies, Joshua and the men saved her alive. Rahab then becomes a member of the Hebrew family. She marries a man named Salmon. And lo and behold, wouldn't you know, that Rahab is in the lineage that led to the Lord Jesus Christ. So we see here Rahab, a Gentile woman, showed great faith in the Lord of the Israelites, and she became adopted by the family of the Israelites, the Jews, and she bare children that led to the King David, and that led to Solomon, and led to Jesus Christ. And we can take that all the way back to Tamar in Genesis chapter 38. She was a Gentile woman. We got now to Rahab, and she has children with her husband. We go to Bathsheba, which I believe was a Gentile woman. I'm not, you can say she wasn't. I'm not going to argue that, but in my opinion, Bathsheba was a Gentile. And we go all the way down to where we see Gentile women in the lineage of Jesus Christ. And right here we see Rahab being in that lineage. She married a man named Salmon. All right? Now, I'm not going to read. I got Matthew chapter 1 underlined there, but I'm not going to read that. How much? Oh, man, I'm going long tonight. I'm sorry. I'm almost done. During the conquest of Jericho, Achan takes some of the spoil. Remember, God commanded them to not take anything, but Achan takes something. This sin leads to Israel being defeated at the next battle of Ai. That's in Joshua chapter 7. After Israel kills Achan and his family and destroys his goods, Israel sees complete victory at Ai. Now that's another city that they conquered, but they took a defeat at Ai because of the sin of Achan. I'm going to finish up really quick here, all right? After the victory over Ai, Israel worships out Mount Ebal, and the Ten Commandments are written as a pledge and a reminder that they were to live by the law of Moses. Half the people were at Mount Ebal, and the half were at Mount Gerizim. I'm going to show you something here on the map, and then I'm going to be done. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was going so long tonight. So you see this city, Nablus? This city, Nablus? This is a valley between Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. So the people go about 25 miles from Jericho at this point, and they gather in this valley. And this is where God gives Joshua another copy of the Ten Commandments, and they reaffirm their commitment to live by the law of God here in this valley between Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim. This is in the land of Samaria, which will cause trouble for the Israelites later. And the one thing that's important about this area is this is where Jesus met the Samaritan woman in John chapter 4 at Jacob's well. Jacob's well was there when the Hebrews come to this area some 600 years after Jacob built this well. All right? So understand that this was an area that was populated by their forefathers centuries prior to this now nation coming and gathering in this valley. All right? But this well, Jacob's well, was where Jesus met the Samaritan woman in John chapter 4. And this is Mount Gerizim, is where the Samaritans worshipped. I'm not going to get into all that, but just pointing that out. I'm almost done. I've got on the bottom here the description here of where Mount Ebal and where Mount Gerizim is. I finished up rather quick. Anybody got any comments or questions?
That Boaz, Rahab's child, that wasn't Ruth and Boaz, right? It's a different one?
No, that's the Boaz.
So, like, literally Rahab's son married Ruth.
There is some debate as to whether there was any genealogies that is missing between Boaz and Salmon. I believe perhaps there are, but for sake of argument here, I put him being a son just because he is mentioned in the lineage of Christ. But there is some debate as to whether there was sons of Salmon and Rahab that led to Boaz, and that Boaz wasn't necessarily a direct son of Rahab, but he's listed as a son because of genealogy. Does that make sense? All right. All right, one last thing and I'm going to be done. So I put on this down at the bottom, holylandsite.com. In doing some research for this, I found this website and I was completely fascinated. I don't know why I hadn't found it before this week or last week, whenever I found it. But this website there are videos, some that are a half hour long, some that are an hour long, that are tours of the Holy Land and go into great detail as to the events that happened in these sites. And I talked to Lee, and we're going to see how it goes, but I believe on the Wednesdays that we have supper, we're going to view some of these videos. If it doesn't go over and if people don't enjoy them, we won't pursue it. But I really think the one I watched this week, it was the hour-long one that took us from Egypt to Jordan, and I was completely fascinated by the detail that this tour guide gives, and the animation and the actual video of, not the people of Israel, but you understand, the video of the sites themselves. So I'm going to try that this Wednesday, since we're eating, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and, for the first one, pick the one where they get to Jericho or to Jordan, and we'll see how it goes. But again, so if you want to look at that and look at some of those videos, again, I was completely fascinated by them. But I like maps and I like history, and that was right up my alley. You all may not like that, but if you don't like it, why, we'll not do it. But I thought we'd try it anyway and see how it goes. So anyway, anybody got anything else? I'm sorry I went a little longer than I should have. Bethany's probably going crazy up there.